One of the things that happened very organically at a workshop I was teaching in San Francisco last year was the idea that a lot of people had questions about the business of photography, because there are, quite a few variables when it comes to dealing with a food photo shoot, and there's also a varying number of clientele. Clientele ranges from, could be somebody you know in a local restaurant to a major advertiser with an international brand. All of those things have to be considered when you're dealing with the business of this particular art form. And one of the things that I was grateful for in that was just how hungry people were for that particular part of the talk that just kind of sprung out of nowhere. We were sitting down with a group about this big. Paolo was actually in that group. And all of a sudden, all these questions kept coming and coming and coming. And we actually sat there and talked for quite a while about, we extended the day and we sat there and we talked about the business for quite a while. And it became abundantly clear to me that this was something that needed to be included in the talks that we were going to have about food photography. So when I wrote all my notes for this workshop, everything I had was, fairly straightforward. I gave bullet points and whatever. And then I got to this section, and I started writing notes. And I kept writing, and I kept writing, and I kept writing. And that's why we decided that this was more of a two-section topic, because just what I have to say is just part of the equation, is how much you have to say as well. Because you probably have individual issues that are outside of the realm of what I'm already talking about. And I'm sure that on the internet, everyone else has individual issues. And I know that pricing is one of those things that people really want to talk about. And pricing is something that it's amorphous. It's something that there's such an enormity to pricing when it comes to dealing with photography. But what I'm hoping to do today when we talk about pricing in general is give you a general guideline about where to start. Understand your worth. Understand that your time is worth something, and that sometimes it's better to say no than say yes. So we're going to cover a lot of this, and you're going to probably hear me say those things quite a lot today about you have to be brave enough to say no sometimes, because you have to know what you're worth. And what we do in this business, whatever piece of this business you decide to be part of and work toward, you have to understand that your value is your time, because the time that you put into your work and your craft and your art is time away from other things that you can't do. And then you have to also balance those things. A lot of us have families, we have friends, we have social lives, we have a lot of things. And every minute of time that you spend putting toward this is valuable. Money isn't the only compensation you can receive in this business, and we'll talk about that as well. You have to know when to use something other than money as compensation. What is it worth to you? What is the end game? This is chess. This isn't checkers. It's complicated. So you need to understand that we're going to talk about so many things today that's why we left this kind of open Q&A all day, meaning whenever we're in this is an ongoing running discussion. This is a give and take all day. I have prepared material, but I'm prepared to answer questions and talk you through the things that are going to be probably confusing for you right now, because trying to figure out how to turn this into money that's a challenge, right? That's why we're here. We're here to figure out how to do things we love, cook, shoot, eat, and then get paid, right? We still want to get paid to do this. We still want to make a living at it. And that's where I'm hoping to really kind of at least smooth it over a little bit and then put a little dollop on top. All right, let's get started. Don't be afraid to ask questions, ever. The questions that are left unanswered are the ones there where the person who's trying to hire you is getting more for their money. You want to be able to give good value, but you also want to make sure that they understand that you know what you're talking about. So we're going to go through 10 questions that you need to ask somebody who wants to hire you. So we're going to do them one at a time. The first one is like asking them what color their underwear is. You ask somebody what their budget is, you never get a straight answer, because the idea is that this is a negotiation for them, and if they throw a number at you right off the bat, they're at a disadvantage. So basically this dance that we do about budget is about who blinks first. It really is. You ask somebody what their budget is, and it's sort of like, well, you know, I'm not sure, and okay, fine. You don't want to tell me what your budget is? Let's ask some more questions. Beyond budget, beyond the idea of what can you spend, now it's about trying to figure out what it is they want. And until you understand what they want, it's a little complicated to throw numbers out. Because basically somebody's trying to box you into a corner the minute they ask you, can you do this work? And if it's your first job or it's a client that you really want to work for and your heart starts pounding and you're like, oh my God, I really want this job, I really want to do this, right? You're immediately at a disadvantage. Because as soon as you feel desperate about it, as soon as you feel like what they're giving you something, that's where you're at a disadvantage. They're not giving you anything. They're maybe giving you an opportunity. Maybe. That's if they hire you. But what they're also giving you is the opportunity to show that you're a professional. And sometimes the more professional you are with certain clients, they get scared off because they know that you're not hard to deal with, but you're a tough negotiator and that you know what you're worth. Everybody's looking for a bargain. I don't blame you. I do not blame anybody for looking for a bargain. And I think that the dance that we do, the negotiation dance with any business, particularly this one, is about give and take. How much can I give of myself? How much can I bend without breaking? And they're basically going, how much can I get for the money I have available to spend? And if you form a relationship that's based on mutual trust, I'm going to do the best I can for you if you do the best you can for me, then you realize that you can form lasting relationships with clients and make something that works out for everybody. Okay. First question I always ask when somebody says, well, I want you to shoot pictures for me. Well, how do you want to use them? This is the key element in this, because if I want to use the images as a purchaser, there's so many ways I can use them, right? I can use them on my website. I can use them for promotion. I can use them in print. I can use them for handouts. I can use them for banner advertising. I could use them for anything. The reality is that all of those things are worth different prices. How you want to use my images is just as important as to what you want me to shoot. So if you're going to say, okay, I want to use them for my store to put up billboards or whatever, okay, that's a certain idea on price because it's fairly narrow, right? So the wider and wider and wider the usage gets, the more and more and more it's worth to them and to you. Because if they're going to shoot pictures that they can use for a business or for a website or for an advertising campaign, all of those things have different values that are attached to them because of the length of the use or the amount of venues they're going to appear in. All of those things are important. And again, these are just the basics. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about these things as we go through. How many shots do you want to use? Do you need variations? How many days? So now we're talking about time, right? How much time do you need me for? Okay? Having day rates is fine when you're working on these jobs, but understand that you should always calculate into your day rate or project fee how much time you're going to have to dedicate on the back end. So, okay, we want to shoot 20 recipes, and I want how many variations do you want? How many shots do you think you might need? These are questions that you ask, and one of the things is you're getting answers that you need to plan out your shoot, but you're also showing the client that you know the questions to ask, that you're not going to own me for 3 days and I'm going to shoot like a monkey with a camera. It's not going to happen. What you're going to do is you're going to plot out everything, and everything that you're going to plot out is going to have a price. And you're going to say, I have 3 days on the back end of this, and this is your budget. I don't think I could take that job because I can't dedicate 6 days of my life to that. That's the equation, is that it's also about educating your clients in a very respectful way. They're the people who want to give you money to work, so you do have to treat them with respect, but you do also have to understand that they need to know what it is that they're getting. So by understanding like all of the complexity of what we've done here in this room for the last 3 days, realizing how much time everything takes, from picking out the props to picking out and shopping for the groceries, to either that or hiring people to do that. All of those things take time, all of those things take money. So if you're not upfront and clear about how many days do you want from me, how many shots do you want from me, and understand in your workflow how long that's going to take, you can't bill your job correctly. Where are we shooting? Do you have a studio? Do I have a studio? Are we shooting in a restaurant? Are we shooting at a farm? Where are we shooting? And who is paying for it? This is always a key element to food photography, because everyone has the idea in their head is, oh, we're going to shoot this at my restaurant. Well, your restaurant's in a basement. There's no natural light. There is no access to the outside, and it's going to be very tough. So what does that mean? Now I have to bring lights, rent lights. So again, where are we shooting? Are we shooting in my studio? Okay, my studio rate is X. Are we shooting in your studio? Okay, fine. You own it. We're good to go. We're renting a studio. Well, that costs X amount of dollars. Does that studio have a kitchen? Can we work in that place? Does your home have a kitchen? All of it is relevant. Ask the right questions, because if you get into a situation where you say, yeah, I'm going to do it. We're going to do this job. We got this. And you get there and you look around and you're like, oh, no. This is a nightmare. The kitchen is on another floor. You know, we don't have access to daylight. The orientation is weird. There's nowhere to put anything. It's too small. Where are we shooting? Really important question. Who's cooking? This is a food shoot. Who's making the food? It's also really important to retain the integrity of your photographs, that you know who's cooking the food. Because the idea is, if they don't understand the things that we went over, those little details, how to prepare certain things for camera, preparing food for camera isn't always the same as preparing it for dinner. We went through this, right? So who's cooking the food? And if the idea is the client is cooking the food, do you trust that they're going to be able to plate it that's appropriate for food photography? And how much guidance will they be able to take from you? If not, you have to hire a stylist. You have to hire cooks and assistants. How much does that cost? Understand the rates in your region. I work in New York. It's expensive. Food stylists for even up to editorial things, I mean, everybody negotiates. But there are rates of between $750 and $1,250 a day for a food stylist to come in and work with you for 1 day. And they're charging you for prep days, or half days, or cleanup days, or return days. Do you understand what all that means, right? They're talking about my time, and they know it really well. The stylists who are professionals and work, they understand what their time is worth. You want me on set, it's this much. You need me to go shopping, prepping, propping, returning things to the store, hiring assistants. If there were jobs where a client came to me and said, this is what I want, X, Y, and Z, I started asking all these questions. And what became apparent was within their budget, the stylist was going to make more money than me. And I said, can't do the job. Because I wouldn't shoot without a professional to prepare the food or work with it, because the client didn't have that. And the idea was, I know what they cost. So understanding those costs, I wrote it out. I told them, I said, look, this is what stylists cost. This is what we need. This is what your budget is. I don't think that I'm the right guy for your job. And they said, thank you. They thanked me. They said, I understand a little bit more now, and I know I have to do something a little different. And they go back and reevaluate. And that's the beauty of this, is that even if you don't get the job, you build a reputation as somebody who knows what they're talking about. Because there are lots of people who call me now just for advice, because they know, okay, well, he's not the guy that's going to do this job for me, but can you recommend somebody? Or what do you think this should cost? And I'm happy to do it, because the idea is that educated consumer is a good one, because then they know what they can get for their money. Who's styling? If it's the same person as the person who's cooking, and when I say styling, I'm talking about both propping and food styling, right? Because the person who cooks the food may not be the person who styles the food. It's usually the assistant, if you're talking about a professional photo shoot. I mean, maybe it's the same person, but I mean, when I've been on big commercial shoots, the food stylist is directing. directing 3 or 4 different people to do everything that needs to be done. That's on the highest of scales. When we're talking about what we're going to do in a smaller scale, just understand that who's styling, who's prop styling, who's going to style the food. If it's you, charge for it. Photography and styling are 2 different skill sets, right? Don't just sell yourself as a one-package deal without understanding that those skills are valuable. If you don't have to hire a stylist, okay, for example, I'll give you a monetary example. You're working for a day rate, whatever the client might be, you're working for a day rate of, let's say, $1,000 a day, okay? And that's including, you're lumping in the cost of your post-production on the back end, right? So you're working for $1,000 a day, just for argument's sake. And you know that a professional stylist for this particular job is going to cost you maybe $500 a day, for argument's sake. Well, you can create a package deal and say, look, we're going to do both. I'm going to bring a couple people in to work with me. You hire assistants for a lower rate. And then, rather than charge $1,000 and $500, you charge $1,250. And then you're creating a package deal where you can use all of your skill sets and you're still getting paid and the client's getting a bargain. That's the whole point of this, is creating bundles and packages. And listen, I developed my entire career during the majority of the recession. The majority of the recession, I was working in this business, and my business grew because I understood that clients had less money. So you had to create package deals for people to make it more palatable for them to get this work done. Because if you parsed it out, hire a food stylist, hire a prop stylist, hire a photographer of note, hire a studio, return days, prop days, assistants, all the things that are going to happen, the numbers are daunting. But if you can create a situation where you're the producer and you have a team or you have people that you trust and you have multiple skill sets, you can sell something that a lot of people can't. Okay, same question, who's propping? So we're kind of, who's styling, who's propping? When do you need pictures? I ask this question right up front because the idea is so many times everybody thinks it comes out of the camera, you put it in the computer and you send it to them. You need to build time into your workflow and make the client understand. And the longer your lead time, the more flexible you can be with them monetarily. Because that means I don't have to rush and stack jobs together, and then all of a sudden I have all this unprocessed file, and I have nowhere. I'm rushing. I got my hair on fire because it's just crazy, right? When do you need your pictures? So you ask that question right in the beginning of the negotiation because it's part of it. Because if you need them right away, that's going to cost more. If you want me to turn these around super quick and put other things on the back burner, well then that comes into the idea of negotiation. So it's really, I wouldn't put a dollar figure on it, but it's really just about how much flexibility you're willing to give the client. So if they're rigid, you can be rigid. If they're really loose and flexible, you can be loose and flexible. Take the lead from the client. Depending on how demanding they are and how much they need from you, that's to your benefit. Where you want the pages, you want the job, you want the money, you want whatever comes with it, the exposure. Well, they want it fast. They want it well done. They want it to look professional. That's the seesaw. You give, they give, and that's how that works. What file format do you prefer? Don't go guessing. I talked about this yesterday, right? There should be no guesswork. If you ask the questions up front, they know you're a professional. Because when you have to reach back to a client in the middle of your processing or in the middle of before you send them finals, it's sort of like, why didn't they ask me that in the beginning, Know your file formats so that when you're processing and whatever, you can use your presets in Lightroom or whatever to kind of get that all out of the way. And it's just, your workflow just goes so much easier. As much as you can take out of the equation after the fact, the more you can know up front, the better we're going to be. And how would you like your files delivered? We talked about this a little bit yesterday too, right? We talked about the idea is if you know how they want them delivered, and if they're a smaller client and they don't have an FTP server and they don't use Dropbox or Usend or whatever, you can educate your client here. Okay, here's how I prefer to send my files. I have a Dropbox account and I'm going to send it to you this way. You'll receive an email and then your files will be ready to be picked up. There is no reason anymore to put things on flash drives and carry them around. It's tenuous. Your work is all this energy and time and money is spent on this little thing, right? You need to put it into your backup files and then put it on the internet for them to retrieve. And again, it's a more professional workflow. One of the things I didn't put on here is food cost, because there's something that it's not a question of who's going to pay for the food. Obviously, somebody's paying for it. But don't forget that that's a big part of the equation. And if your client isn't prepared to know that all of that isn't all-inclusive, that your rate isn't all-inclusive of everything, including the food, it seems self-explanatory, but it's not. Just be open and honest about everything and try to be good about estimating food cost. I try to estimate about 20 to 30% over for food cost because you need to have some flexibility and room. You never know, because if you're working with ingredients that are easy to attain and relatively inexpensive, great, because then when you come back with a lower food cost, your client is happy. So you want to kind of make sure that you know where you want to shop, but also the ingredients that we use for food photography, quite honestly, are usually more expensive than the things that we're going to eat at home. We don't cut corners in food photography, right? We don't go for the budget items. We go for the best available. So that's one of those things where you have to kind of make your clients understand that food costs the higher, the number of dishes we go, the higher it gets. And you don't want to get burned for food cost because you can take a good chunk of your profit right out of it if you underestimate food cost. So that's one of those important things as well. So those 10 questions.
Andrew?
Yes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In proposals then, do you have those as like a direct line cost for budget for food?
Yes. Yep.
And do you estimate ahead of time what it might cost? Or do you just have it as this is going to be built directly after?
Well, I do an estimate for every job, and I'll put a line item for food cost, and then after the fact, I will provide receipts.
Okay.
So to show that receipt keeping and all that record keeping for food photographers is really important too. It's something that you need to be meticulous about. Basically, I save every food receipt, whether it's for work or not. Because the reality is I keep a food studio and I don't bill for every grain of salt I use. I keep a stock in my studio of basic items that get used all the time. Canned tomatoes, chicken stock, salt, pepper, seasoning, spices, all the things that are non-perishable or come in cans or you can store. I have stockpiles of it. I look like a survivalist. But the idea is that when you buy that stuff in bulk at Costco or BJ's or Sam's Club or whatever, big, box store that you go to stock up on that stuff, and if you have a lot of room in your space, you can really save money on food costs, because if you go out and buy it at the local market, it's way more expensive. So the things that you can plan ahead and keep in your studio or keep in your space that'll be reusable, that's why I keep all my receipts. So then every month, I have 2 Ziploc bags that I put up on my bulletin board. One says props and one says food. And every receipt, at the end of the day, I empty my pockets and I put all my receipts in there. At the end of the month, I scan them all into my computer, I add them up, I create a line item, and everything is there. So that at the end of the month, when I need to submit receipts to clients, I have everything in a computer, all organized, labeled, and then stapled together. If I have, this is for one magazine, this is for a different, and everybody has a different system. There are some clients who understand that we're in a long-term relationship and there's a trust balance there, and when I give them a food cost, they don't actually require receipts, but I have them anyway. just in case. So keeping your receipts in order and understanding too, hey, from a tax perspective, you're a freelance professional. These are tax deductible items, all of it, everything that you use in your business. So food, in some ways, is also tax deductible because you have to continually use food in ways that aren't intended for consumption, meaning you're testing, you're practicing, all of these things, you're researching, these things are important. And you talk to your accountant and you make him understand or her understand that these are all the things that I'm doing with my business. And if you find an accountant who specializes in art, in people in the arts, in what we do, they understand these things. They understand the deductions. They understand how you need to file your taxes. If you are growing, I encourage you to incorporate because you are provided more protection. You should have photo insurance because photo insurance not only protects your gear, but it protects you from liability. So if you're out there working as a professional, all of these things are key and important to what you're doing because the idea of you as a business person, a small business person, is about protection. You go on a photo shoot and you have an assistant and somebody doesn't sandbag a ladder and somebody falls and gets hurt, you're liable. That's your problem now because you're the person in charge. So you need to protect yourself in a lot of ways when you're talking about your finances, your gear, liability. All of these things are important, and this is why incorporation, even if you're deciding that you can do it on a smaller scale, you don't have to become a C Corp or an S Corp, but you definitely can be a sole proprietor, and you can have a small business and have a tax ID number that's separate, and that way you can file your taxes as a business, and then you can file your taxes as an individual. And then you can also take a salary from your business. So that, again, especially if you're married, that is complicated because if you're filing jointly, you have that separate. It's better to separate your work and your home. And when I first started working in this business, and I said this earlier, jokingly, I worked and lived in the same space, and it was really hard. It's hard even mentally to separate, right? To separate your work life from your home life. But if you think about it, that's a tangible thing that you can understand. But the financial part of it too, once it becomes enmeshed and intertwined in your life, it's hard to pull it apart. So if you find yourself on a path to working as a professional in this business or any other, it's better as a freelancer to be a small corporation. And your accountant can explain to you all the tax benefits there are too, where it's not bleeding on the rest of your life, where if business isn't good, you have some protection there as well. So it's a smart move, the small, and it's easy to do. It's a phone call or a click on the computer.